Commander Velox-Nine tapped his 6-clawed fingers against the control panel of the Galactic Defense Station. His purple eyes darted between the holographic displays showing the approaching human vessel. One ship. Just one measly, pathetic ship heading straight toward the most fortified position in the galaxy. "Sir," squeaked Lieutenant Pip from her communications post, her antenna twitching nervously. "The human vessel is still maintaining course. They're not responding to our warnings." Velox-Nine let out a sound that would have been a laugh if his species possessed anything resembling a sense of humor. "One ship. After everything we've heard about these humans and their supposed military might, they send us one ship." Admiral Krex 14, a massive creature with scales that shifted colors based on his mood, currently glowing a deep red of amusement, lumbered over to the command station. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Perhaps they're surrendering. I mean, what else could it be?" The bridge fell silent, except for the steady beeping of sensors and the low hum of life support systems. Velox-Nine studied the readouts again. The human ship was indeed small by galactic standards, maybe a quarter the size of their smallest patrol vessel. No visible weapons arrays, no energy signatures indicating shields or defensive systems. It looked more like a cargo hauler than a warship. "Communications. Try hailing them again," Velox-Nine ordered, his voice dripping with mock concern. "We wouldn't want to accidentally vaporize their surrender vessel." Lieutenant Pip's fingers danced across her console. "Channel open, sir." "Attention, human vessel." Velox-Nine spoke into the communications array, unable to keep the smirk out of his voice. "This is Commander Velox-Nine of the Galactic Defense Station Omega-7. You are approaching restricted space. State your intentions immediately or face the consequences." The response came back almost instantly, and the voice was so casual it might have been ordering lunch. "Oh, hey there. This is Captain Marcus Vale of the Earth vessel Wanderer. We're here about that whole surrender or die ultimatum you folks sent to our planet last week." Velox-Nine blinked his purple eyes in confusion. The human sounded almost bored. "Captain Vale, are you here to negotiate terms of surrender?" "Surrender?" The human's voice carried what sounded like genuine confusion. No, we're here to discuss your surrender, actually. See, the thing is, we humans have this policy about threats. We don't really appreciate them." Admiral Krex 14's scales shifted to a brilliant orange, the color of disbelief. Did that human just threaten us?" "I think he did," Velox-Nine replied, his voice flat with shock. He leaned closer to the communications panel. "Captain Vale, perhaps you misunderstand the situation. You are one ship facing a defense station with enough firepower to crack a moon. We have a fleet of 300 vessels surrounding your position. Are you perhaps experiencing some form of mental breakdown?" The human's response was immediate and cheerful. "Oh, we're fully aware of your numbers, Commander. Our sensors are pretty good. Nice fleet, by the way. Very impressive. Must have cost a fortune." "Then why," Velox-Nine said slowly, "did you come here with only one ship?" There was a pause, and when Captain Vale spoke again, his voice carried what could only be described as amusement. "Well, Commander, that's a great question. See, we humans have this saying, why use a sledgehammer when a scalpel will do? We only brought what we needed." Lieutenant Pip's antennae were practically vibrating with anxiety. "Sir, their ship is still approaching. They're not slowing down." "Weapons," Velox-Nine barked. "Target that ship and prepare to fire." "Sir," came the voice of Weapons Officer Zank 3. "Targeting systems are locked on. Shall I fire?" "Not yet," Admiral Krex 14 rumbled, his scales now shifting to a thoughtful blue. "I want to see what they're planning. This is either the most elaborate suicide mission in galactic history, or what?" Velox-Nine demanded. "Or we're missing something very important about these humans." The human ship continued its approach, still broadcasting no energy signatures that would indicate weapons or shields. It was like watching a child walk up to a dragon with nothing but a stick. "Captain Vale," Velox-Nine tried again, This is your final warning. Alter course immediately, or we will open fire. Yeah, about that. Vale's voice came back, still maddeningly casual. We've been analyzing your weapons systems during our approach. Very sophisticated. Very powerful. Very visible. Visible? Velox-Nine repeated. Oh yes. See, you've got all these energy signatures broadcasting your capabilities. Very intimidating. Very obvious. It's like wearing a sign that says I'm dangerous in 12 different languages. That's the point, Velox-Nine said, feeling increasingly confused. Right. Makes perfect sense. The thing is, we humans learned a long time ago that the most dangerous things in the universe are often the ones you can't see coming. Lieutenant Pip's voice cracked as she spoke. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the station. All systems are showing red alerts. What? Velox-Nine spun toward her console. That's impossible. We're not powering any weapons systems. That's correct, sir. The energy isn't coming from us. A chill ran down Velox-Nine's spine, a sensation he hadn't experienced since he was a young officer facing his first combat situation. Then where is it coming from? Captain Vale's voice filled the bridge, and for the first time, there was something sharp underneath the casual tone. Commander, let me tell you a little story about humans. A few hundred years ago, we had this thing called the Cold War. Two great powers. Enough nuclear weapons to end civilization, everyone very polite and careful. You know what ended it? Mud. What? Velox-Nine whispered. One side realized they couldn't win a war of numbers, so they got creative. They got quiet. They got invisible. Admiral Kreck's 14 scales were now cycling through colors so rapidly they appeared almost white. All stations. Full sensor sweep. Find the source of those energy readings. Sir, came the panicked voice of Sensor Officer Tulin-8. I'm reading massive objects decloaking throughout the system. They're everywhere. The main display shifted to show the tactical situation, and Velox-Nine's blood turned to ice. Surrounding the defense station, emerging from what appeared to be empty space, were ships, hundreds of them. Each one larger than anything in the Galactic Fleet, bristling with weapons that made their most advanced systems look like toys. This is impossible, Admiral Kreck's 14 breathed. Our sensors would have detected them. Would they? Captain Vale's voice was now openly amused. See, that's the thing about humans. We're really good at not being detected when we don't want to be. We've had centuries of practice hiding from things that want to kill us. How long? Velox-Nine managed to ask. How long have they been there? Oh, about 6 months. Right after you sent that charming ultimatum to Earth. We figured you might be the aggressive type, so we wanted to be prepared. Lieutenant Pip's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, they're powering weapons. Energy signatures are off the charts. But why? Velox-Nine demanded. Why send just one ship if you had this entire fleet? Captain Vale's chuckle was warm and somehow terrifying at the same time. Because, Commander, we wanted to give you a chance. See, humans have this weird thing about fair fights. We don't like them. We prefer overwhelming superiority. But we also believe in giving people the opportunity to make better choices. What do you want? Admiral Kreck's 14 asked, his massive form seeming to shrink. Simple. You withdraw from human space. You leave us alone. You find some other species to bully. And in return, we don't demonstrate exactly why sending one ship was more than enough. The bridge was silent except for the increasingly frantic beeping of alarms. Velox-Nine stared at the tactical display, watching as more and more human ships materialized around their position. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek and deadly, with weapons that seemed to bend the very laws of physics. Sir, Weapons Officer Zank 3 called out. Our targeting systems can't lock onto their ships. They're using some kind of interference field. Of course they are. Velox-Nine muttered. He keyed the communications array. Captain Vale, what guarantee do we have that you won't simply attack us anyway? Well, Vale replied thoughtfully, I suppose you'll have to trust us, which is ironic, considering you started this whole mess by threatening to exterminate our entire species. Admiral Crex 14 stepped forward, his scales now a deep, defeated gray. Captain Vale, if we agree to your terms, what assurance do we have that humanity won't seek revenge? Revenge? Vale sounded genuinely surprised. Commander, we're not here for revenge. We're here to make a point. You threatened us, we responded. Now we're all going to go home and pretend this never happened. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to see what happens when humans get creative with applied physics. As if to emphasize his point, the nearest human ship fired a single, brief pulse of energy at a small asteroid floating nearby. The asteroid didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. It's not vaporized, not destroyed, but gone as if it had never been there at all. That's our basic ship-to-ship armament, Vale explained helpfully. We have some really interesting toys for planetary operations, but I don't think we need to demonstrate those today. Velox-Nine felt his legs give out slightly. He gripped the command console for support. What are you? Mutter you. We're humans, Vale replied, and there was something ancient and tired in his voice. We're the species that survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and each other. We're the species that looked at a hostile universe and decided to make it less hostile. We're the species that sent one ship because one ship was all we needed to deliver a message. And what message is that? Admiral Crex 14 asked quietly. That threatening humanity is a mistake you only get to make once. The silence stretched for long minutes, broken only by the soft beeping of instruments and the distant hum of the station's life support systems. Finally, Admiral Crex 14 activated his own communications array. All Galactic Fleet units, this is Admiral Crex 14. Stand down all weapons. Begin withdrawal from human space immediately. Sir? Came confused voices from various ships. You heard me. Full withdrawal. All ships, all stations, all personnel, human space is off limits as of now. Thank you, Admiral, Captain Vale said, and his voice had returned to its earlier casual tone. That was very sensible. We'll be monitoring to ensure compliance, but I'm confident this won't be necessary again. The fleet will be gone within the hour, Crex 14 confirmed. Excellent. Oh, and Admiral? Commander, it's been a pleasure talking with you. We hope you have a safe trip home. The human ship began to turn away, its course set for the edge of the system. As it moved, the massive fleet of human vessels began to fade from sensors, disappearing back into whatever impossible stealth technology had kept them hidden. Lieutenant Pip looked up from her console, her antenna still twitching with residual fear. Sir, they're gone. All of them. It's like they were never here. Velox-Nine slumped in his command chair, staring at the now empty tactical display. They were never here. That's the point. Admiral Crex 14's scales slowly shifted to a dull brown, the color of deep thought. Commander, send a message to High Command. Tell them we've encountered something unprecedented. What should I tell them about the humans? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, watching the distant point of light that was the human ship heading home. Tell them that humanity sent only one ship because one ship was all they needed. And tell them that we never want to find out what they would have sent if they'd needed more. As the Galactic Defense Station began its withdrawal from human space, Velox-Nine couldn't shake the feeling that they had just witnessed something that would change the galaxy forever. The humans had made their point with devastating clarity. They were not a species to be threatened, bullied, or underestimated. And they had done it all with a single ship and a casual conversation. The galaxy, it seemed, had just learned a very important lesson about humanity. The question now was whether anyone would be foolish enough to forget it. 3 standard galactic cycles later, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Intergalactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representative Thane Omega adjusted his ceremonial robes and tried to ignore the way his gills fluttered with anxiety. Today's emergency session had been called specifically to address what historians were already calling the human incident. Order. Order. Boomed Council Speaker Rox Prime, his massive hammer-like appendage striking the resonance crystal with authority. This emergency session will now begin. First speaker. Representative Kel Nova from the Andorian Collective. Kel Nova rose from her seat, her silver skin gleaming under the assembly lights. Honored colleagues, we gather today to discuss the most significant shift in galactic power dynamics in recorded history. The species known as humans have effectively neutralized the Galactic Defense Network with a single vessel. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Senator Vex 12, representing the Regellian Empire, stood abruptly. That's impossible. The defense network has protected civilized space for millennia. How could one primitive species from the outer rim accomplish such a feat? Perhaps, came a new voice from the back of the chamber. You should ask them directly. Every head turned toward the entrance, where a figure in a simple blue uniform walked calmly down the center aisle. The human was average height, with brown hair, and what appeared to be a permanent expression of mild amusement. Behind him followed two others, a woman with short red hair and a man with dark skin and calculating eyes. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the human woman announced, her voice carrying easily through the stunned silence. This is my colleague, Dr. James Wright, and our military liaison, Colonel Samuel Torres. We received your invitation to address the council. Council Speaker Rox Prime's voice cracked slightly. We didn't send an invitation. Ambassador Vasquez smiled, and somehow that expression made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Oh, you didn't need to. We've been monitoring your communications for quite some time. Professional courtesy, you understand. Monitoring our communications. Representative Thane Omega sputtered. This chamber is shielded with quantum encryption. Dr. Wright stepped forward, producing a small device that looked remarkably unremarkable. Yes, we noticed. Very clever system. Took us almost 3 hours to crack it completely. The assembly erupted in shocked chatter. Council Speaker Rox Prime struck his crystal repeatedly until order was restored. Humans, you stand accused of threatening the peace and stability of the galaxy. How do you respond? Colonel Torres, who had remained silent until now, spoke with the kind of calm authority that made military officers across the galaxy unconsciously straighten their posture. We respond by questioning the accuracy of that statement. We threatened no one. We simply responded to a threat. You destroyed an entire defense network. Senator Vex 12 protested. Destroyed? Ambassador Vasquez looked genuinely confused. We didn't destroy anything. We simply demonstrated that your network was ineffective against our capabilities. All your ships returned home safely. All your personnel are unharmed. We call that remarkably restrained. Representative Kel Nova accessed her datapad with trembling fingers. Our intelligence reports indicate that your fleet consisted of over 400 vessels, each one technologically superior to anything in the known galaxy. Where did these ships come from? Well, Doctor. Mao, Wright said thoughtfully. That's an interesting question. See, humans have this tendency to prepare for the worst possible scenario. When we first detected your defense network, we assumed it was built to defend against something. So we asked ourselves, what could possibly require such massive defensive capabilities? The answer, Colonel Torres continued, was obviously something much more dangerous than anything you'd encountered before, so we built our fleet to handle that hypothetical threat. But there is no such threat. Representative Thane Omega exclaimed. Ambassador Vasquez's smile widened. Not anymore, there isn't. The implications of that statement settled over the assembly like a cold blanket. Council Speaker Rox Prime leaned forward in his chair. Are you saying that humanity prepared for war against an enemy that didn't exist? We prepared for war against an enemy that might exist, Colonel Torres corrected. The fact that we encountered you instead was simply a convenient field test of our capabilities. Senator Vex 12's voice was barely above a whisper. Field test. Oh yes. Dr. Wright said cheerfully. We learned quite a bit. For instance, we discovered that our stealth technology is far more effective than we'd hoped. We also learned that our weapons systems are perhaps a bit too powerful for conventional ship-to-ship combat. That asteroid demonstration was actually our lowest power setting. Lowest? Representative Thane Omega's gills were now fluttering so rapidly they were almost invisible. Well, we couldn't very well use our standard armament, Colonel Torres explained reasonably. That would have been overkill. Plus, we didn't want to accidentally damage the local solar system. Council Speaker Rox Prime set down his hammer with shaking hands. What exactly do you want from us? Ambassador Vasquez gestured to the assembled representatives. Nothing at all. We simply want to be left alone to develop in peace. We have no interest in galactic politics, no desire to conquer territory, no ambition to rule over other species. We just want to explore, learn, and grow. But your military capabilities, Senator Vex 12 protested. Surely you must have expansionist goals. Why would we? Dr. Wright asked, genuinely puzzled. We have an entire galaxy to explore. Why would we waste time conquering planets when we could be discovering new forms of life, new civilizations, new scientific principles? Representative Kel Nova stood slowly. What about the defense network? What about galactic security? What about it? Colonel Torres replied, your network was designed to protect against external threats. We're not external anymore. We're neighbors. Asian neighbors should be able to coexist peacefully. But if other species see what happened, Representative Thane Omega said desperately, if they realize the defense network can be neutralized, there could be chaos, rebellions, wars. Ambassador Vasquez nodded sympathetically. That's certainly a possibility, which is why we're prepared to offer our assistance. Assistance? Council Speaker Rox Prime repeated carefully. Technological exchange, Dr. Wright explained. We share some of our defensive capabilities with the Council. In return, you provide us with cultural and scientific knowledge from your member species. Everyone benefits. And if we refuse? Senator Vex 12 asked. The three humans exchanged glances. Ambassador Vasquez spoke first. Then you refuse. We're not in the business of forcing cooperation. We'll simply return to our space and continue our development independently. But Colonel Torres added quietly, we would strongly recommend that you reconsider any future expansion toward human territory. We've grown quite fond of our privacy. The assembly fell silent. Finally, Council Speaker Rox Prime spoke. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't use its superior technology to dominate the galaxy? You have our word, Ambassador Vasquez said simply. That's it? Representative Thane Omega demanded. Your word? It's all we've ever needed, Colonel Torres replied. Humans have learned that trust is the foundation of all meaningful relationships. We give our word, we keep it. It's that simple. Dr. Wright pulled out another device, this one slightly larger than the first. However, if you need something more concrete, we're prepared to share the specifications for our early warning detection system. It will alert you to any cloaked vessels entering Council space. Early warning system? Senator Vex 12 leaned forward. You mean your stealth technology can be detected? Of course, Dr. Wright said, looking mildly surprised. We wouldn't build a stealth system without also developing countermeasures. That would be tactically unsound. Representative Kel Nova's voice was carefully controlled. And you're willing to share this technology? The basic principles, yes. Consider it a gesture of good faith. Council Speaker Rox Prime looked around the assembly, reading the expressions on dozens of different faces. Fear, confusion, hope, and calculation all warred for dominance. The Council will need time to consider your proposal. Of course, Ambassador Vasquez said graciously. We'll be staying at the diplomatic quarters if you need clarification on any points. As the three humans turned to leave, Representative Thane Omega called out, Wait, we still don't understand. Why did you really send only one ship? What was the point? Ambassador Vasquez paused at the entrance to the assembly hall. Because, Representative, We wanted to give you the chance to make the right choice. We could have arrived with our entire fleet. We could have made demands. We could have conquered your territories and imposed our will. But, Colonel Torres continued, that's not who we are. We sent one ship because we hoped that rational beings would recognize a peaceful gesture when they saw one. And if we hadn't? Senator Vex-12 asked, if we had fired on your single ship? Dr. Wright smiled, and for the first time there was something cold in the expression. Then you would have discovered why we brought 400 ships instead of 4,000. The three humans left the assembly hall, leaving behind a stunned silence that stretched for several minutes. Finally, Council Speaker Rox Prime spoke. All in favor of accepting the human proposal? The vote was unanimous. Later, in the privacy of his quarters, Representative Thane Omega activated his personal communication device. The image of Admiral Crex-14 appeared, his scales still the dull brown of deep thought. Admiral, I watched the council session today. The humans seem reasonable. Reasonable? Crex-14's laugh was bitter. Representative, do you know what I've been doing for the past 3 cycles? No, sir. Beater, I've been studying human history. Their wars, their conflicts, their methods of problem solving. Do you know what I've learned? Thane Omega waited. Humans don't just win wars. They win them so completely that their enemies never want to fight them again. They don't just defeat opponents. They demonstrate such overwhelming superiority that the very idea of resistance becomes unthinkable. But they're offering peace. Thane Omega protested. Cooperation. Yes, they are. And that's the most terrifying thing of all. They're so confident in their superiority that they can afford to be generous. They sent one ship because they knew one ship was enough. They offered cooperation because they knew we had no choice but to accept. Admiral Crex-14's image flickered slightly. Representative, humanity didn't just change the balance of power in the galaxy. They made it irrelevant. They're so far beyond us technologically that we might as well be comparing spears to starships. So what do? We accept their offer. We cooperate, we learn from them. And we pray that they continue to find us useful enough to keep alive. The communication ended, leaving Thane Omega alone with his thoughts. Outside his window, the lights of the council station twinkled like stars, each one representing a different species, a different world, a different civilization. All of them now living in a galaxy where humanity had answered the question of why they sent only one ship with devastating clarity, because one ship was all they needed to change everything. In the diplomatic quarters, Ambassador Vasquez stood at her own window, looking out at the same stars. Colonel Torres joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. I think they'll accept? He asked. They already have, she replied, accepting the cup gratefully. The vote was just a formality. And if they hadn't? They hadn't? Vasquez smiled. The same expression that had made the council so uncomfortable. Then we would have proceeded to Phase 2 of the integration protocol. I'm almost curious to see what Phase 2 looks like. No, Vasquez said quietly. You're not. Trust me on that. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the lights of a galaxy that had just learned the most important lesson in its history. Humanity was not a species to be threatened, challenged, or underestimated. They were a species to be respected, cooperated with, and above all, left alone to pursue their own goals. The galaxy had asked why humanity sent only one ship. The answer, as it turned out, was simple, because humans always brought exactly what they needed, nothing more, nothing less. And what they had needed was not a fleet, not an army, not overwhelming force. What they had needed was a conversation, the most dangerous conversation in galactic history.